The ancient world holds stories and secrets that are as fascinating as they are eerie. Tonight, we will wander among fragments of history, exploring facts that sometimes seem unreal. Before you settle in, take a moment to make yourself comfortable. And if you enjoy these late-night history wanderings, consider subscribing. And if you'd like, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. It's always fascinating to see who's tuning in from different corners of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe put on a small fan, just for that steady hum in the background. Now let's begin. What if I told you that lost cities were not just ruins, but living puzzles? Each vanished place carries mysteries we're still trying to untangle. These lost cities of the ancient world are places that once bustled with life, now resting quietly beneath sand, water, or overgrown forests. One such place is Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. Carved stone pillars rise like sentinels from the earth, engraved with mysterious animals and symbols whose meaning still puzzles modern scholars. Some of these stones weigh as much as small elephants, yet they were arranged by people who had not yet invented the wheel. Archaeologists believe this site was used for ritual gatherings, a place where communities connected with the spiritual world in ways we can only imagine. Standing there today, in your mind, it's almost as if the air itself hums with silent ceremony, ancient and profound. Further east, in the valleys of the Indus River, cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa flourished around 4,500 years ago. They had streets laid out in perfect grids, sophisticated drainage systems, and wells that provided fresh water to every home. The precision of these cities is astounding. Bricks were standardized, bathrooms were connected to public sewage, and markets hummed quietly with trade. And yet their script remains undeciphered, leaving their stories locked in symbols we can only glimpse like a soft whisper through time. Even in Egypt, beyond the pyramids and temples, entire cities like Heracleion disappeared beneath the waves. This port city, once bustling with sailors and merchants, sank into the Mediterranean centuries ago, its temples, statues, and treasures preserved underwater. Divers exploring the ruins describe eerie quiet, the way sunlight filters through water to illuminate long-lost sculptures, as though the city sleeps beneath a gentle blue haze, holding its secrets patiently. Lost cities are not always submerged. Some were swallowed by deserts. Ubar, often called the Atlantis of the sands, was a trading hub in southern Arabia, its wealth drawn from incense and spices. Sandstorms and shifting dunes eventually buried it completely. Explorers today can trace only outlines of walls beneath the sand, a faint reminder that even thriving civilizations can disappear when nature decides. There's a soft melancholy in imagining these streets, once full of chatter and footsteps, now silent and eternal under the desert sun. And then there is Catalhoyuk, a settlement of mud brick houses that were so close together people walked across rooftops to move between homes. Frescoes on the walls depict animals, daily life, and abstract symbols, offering glimpses into rituals, beliefs, and celebrations that have faded from memory. Here, history feels intimate. It's a city frozen in gentle quiet, where ordinary life and the extraordinary intertwine, leaving us to imagine the lives of those who painted the walls, tended their animals, and shared bread with neighbors. Even in the Americas, civilizations left cities that vanished or were forgotten for centuries. The Maya built cities deep in dense jungles like Tikal and Palenque, with temples rising above tree canopies. Their knowledge of astronomy allowed them to align structures perfectly with celestial events. And yet, by the time European explorers arrived, some cities were empty, their people dispersed, leaving only stone monuments and the soft whisper of history carried by wind through the trees. These lost cities, scattered across the world, remind us that history is full of quiet mysteries. Some vanish through natural events, others fade as cultures change or migrate. Yet each one holds traces of human ingenuity, artistry, and belief, waiting patiently for modern eyes to discover. As you imagine walking through these streets, past silent temples, overgrown markets, and sun-bleached homes, there is a comforting rhythm to the past, a sense that human creativity and wonder endure, even when the civilizations themselves have disappeared. And in this gentle exploration, your mind can wander further. Picture the soft light falling over stone pillars, the muted colors of ancient frescoes, the faint sound of water flowing in canals long buried. Imagine children playing in streets that no one walks today, merchants arranging goods for sale that will never be purchased again. Every detail is small, quiet, and calm, yet it hints at the vast tapestry of human life that once thrived here. These cities are whispers across time, carrying lessons, secrets, and beauty into the present, inviting your imagination to rest and drift alongside them. Across the ancient world, stone, mud brick, and timber were shaped into structures that still leave us in awe today. Some were built to honor gods, others to celebrate kings, and many simply to endure, as if the builders understood the quiet power of permanence. Even thousands of years later, these creations seem to hum softly, with the intentions and dreams of their makers. In Egypt, the pyramids of Giza stand like mountains crafted by human hands. Each stone block was placed with extraordinary precision, aligned not randomly but with the stars. The Great Pyramid, with its nearly perfect cardinal alignment, captures sunlight at dawn on the summer solstice, illuminating its inner chambers in a fleeting, golden glow. This subtle alignment, repeated once each year, is a quiet reminder of a civilization in harmony with the cosmos. Far to the east, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia rise in stepped layers, almost like mountains reaching toward the sky. Made from sun-dried bricks and baked clay, these structures were both temples and symbolic ladders to the divine. Inside, priests would walk softly along narrow passages carrying offerings, their footsteps echoing through empty chambers that once pulsed with ritual chants. The geometry, height, and careful planning of each ziggurat suggest that ancient builders were not only skilled but also deeply attentive to symbolism and proportion. Greek theatres reveal a different kind of wonder. Open-air stages like Epidaurus were carved into hillsides, their acoustics so precise that a whisper on stage can reach the furthest row of stone seats. The design balances sound and space, carrying music, dialogue, and even the softest laughter across hundreds of listeners. These theatres were not merely entertainment, they were carefully crafted spaces that shaped communal experiences, where sound and story intertwined effortlessly under the sky. Rome contributed its own architectural marvels, creating aqueducts that carried water across valleys and cities, bridges that spanned rivers, and roads stretching for miles with gentle gradients and durable stonework. These constructions, functional yet beautiful, reveal a civilization that valued both efficiency and elegance. The arches, vaults, and columns of Roman architecture allow structures to endure even as centuries pass quietly overhead, a testament to human ingenuity meeting natural forces. In other corners of the world, megaliths and stone circles silently mark places of unknown purpose. Stonehenge, rising on the windswept plains of England, aligns with solstices, casting long shadows as the sun rises or sets. Its massive stones, transported from distant quarries, seem almost to defy explanation, hinting at ceremonies, gatherings, or knowledge of astronomy long lost to time. Each stone carries a subtle weight, not just of rock, but of memory, intention, and mystery. Even the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica reflect careful cosmic planning. At sites like Teotihuacan, massive platforms and temples align with celestial events, framing the movement of the sun across the sky. Within these cities, streets are laid out in patterns reflecting both spiritual and practical considerations. Every stone, every avenue whispers of the people who walked there, carrying offerings, chanting prayers, and watching the skies. Across continents and cultures, ancient architecture demonstrates a shared attention to proportion, alignment, and harmony. Temples, tombs, and monuments often capture light or shadow at specific moments, integrating celestial cycles into human experience. Walls carved with reliefs, doors framed with precise measurements, and courtyards designed for both function and reflection show that architecture was not merely building, it was an expression of thought, belief, and the desire to connect with forces larger than oneself. Walking through these ruins in imagination, one can sense the rhythm of ancient life, craftsmen shaping stone, priests guiding ceremonies, townspeople moving along roads and plazas, all interacting with structures designed to endure and inspire. Each building becomes more than stone or clay. It becomes a vessel of quiet knowledge, holding lessons in engineering, art, and human observation. Even today, these silent monuments speak, encouraging patience, curiosity, and awe. The subtle elegance of ancient architecture lies in its balance of mystery and familiarity. We recognize homes, halls, temples, and marketplaces, yet the precision and creativity leave us marveling quietly. They teach that beauty often resides not only in grandeur, but in alignment, proportion, and the careful consideration of each element. These structures, some submerged, some eroded by time, still stand as a gentle reminder that humanity has always sought to understand the world, to honor the heavens, and to leave traces of thought and devotion that outlast individual lifetimes. In the quiet corners of ancient cities, life unfolded in small, deliberate rhythms. Streets may have been dusty or paved, markets bustling or serene, yet the ordinary moments of daily life reveal a depth of creativity and ingenuity that often goes unnoticed. People went about tasks that might seem familiar today, cooking, cleaning, crafting, playing, and gathering in communal spaces, all quietly shaping civilizations. In Mesopotamia, for instance, households often contained clay tablets and styluses, not just for record-keeping, but sometimes for writing poems or love notes. Families lived in modest mud-brick homes, climbing gently sloped rooftops to access other rooms, a practical solution that doubled as a quiet pathway above the streets. Children played with small clay figurines, spinning tops, or miniature chariots, learning through recreation while observing the rhythms of adult life. These toys, crafted with care, suggest that even play was a subtle reflection of culture and imagination. In Egypt, daily routines were intertwined with the river. Fresh water from the Nile was drawn for cooking, washing, and irrigation, while fish and fowl provided nourishment. Bread, often baked daily, formed the staple of most meals, accompanied by lentils, onions, and sweet fruits. Women carefully applied kohl around their eyes, not only for beauty, but also to protect against the harsh sun and prevent infections. Wigs, often made of human hair or palm fibers, kept heads cool, while jewelry served both aesthetic and symbolic purposes. Even ordinary objects carried significance, from scarab amulets protecting children to finely woven baskets storing grains. Across the Indus Valley, cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa reveal sophisticated domestic organization. Houses often included private wells, bathing areas, and drainage systems, demonstrating attention to hygiene and comfort. Clay seals with intricate designs suggest commerce and ownership, while cooking implements indicate meals carefully planned and prepared. Residents lived quietly, yet with remarkable structure and foresight, embedding order into the rhythm of their days. In Greece, social life extended into public spaces. Agoras were more than marketplaces. They were meeting places for conversation, debate, and exchange of ideas. Citizens gathered to discuss politics, philosophy, and art, while children played in the shadows of temples and public buildings. Sports, from wrestling to foot races, were practiced both for recreation and for training the body, blending discipline with enjoyment. Music and theatre offered moments of shared experience, with songs, poetry, and performances creating gentle, collective memory. Ancient Rome introduced innovations in daily convenience that quietly shaped urban life. Public baths offered spaces for relaxation, hygiene, and socializing, their pools and steam rooms designed with subtle attention to temperature and flow. Streets were lined with fountains providing drinking water, while markets offered goods from across the empire, spices from the east, olive oil from the Mediterranean, and silks from distant lands. Romans were attentive to leisure and culture, blending practical life with refinement, where even ordinary meals could involve carefully spiced dishes and delicate pastries. Across Asia, life in early China reflected a similar attention to balance and harmony. Courtyards and gardens provided spaces for quiet reflection, while homes were arranged according to feng shui principles, subtly guiding energy and comfort. Rice cultivation demanded patience and cooperation, with planting and harvest marking the rhythm of the year. Household items, from pottery vessels to bamboo mats, were carefully made, emphasizing both utility and aesthetic calm. Even in the Americas, communities thrived with remarkable domestic ingenuity. The Maya cultivated terraces and chinampas to feed populations, while housing clusters were organized around courtyards and plazas. Pottery, weaving, and carving were daily activities that combined function with beauty, often leaving behind subtle clues of beliefs, rituals, and social structures. Music, dance, and storytelling enlivened quiet evenings, while ceremonial spaces created a gentle bridge between ordinary life and spiritual practice. Across cultures, festivals, and communal gatherings punctuated the everyday, offering moments of reflection, joy, and ritual. Feasts might honor harvests, celestial events, or deities, blending music, dance, and theatre in serene harmony. Even private rituals, such as offering food to household gods or lighting incense at small altars, embedded ordinary life with a sense of connection to forces larger than oneself. Every gesture, every carefully shaped object, every fleeting interaction contributed to a slow, deliberate rhythm that allowed people to navigate their worlds with intention and calm. Exploring daily life in these ancient civilizations, it becomes clear that even in societies so far removed from our own, people valued comfort, beauty, and order. Homes were designed for function and serenity, clothing reflected status and climate, meals nourished both body and tradition, and communal spaces allowed for exchange and reflection. In imagining these quiet moments, children laughing across clay courtyards, bakers sliding loaves from ovens, families sharing simple meals, artisans crafting pottery or weaving baskets, you can sense a continuity of human experience that bridges millennia. These glimpses into ordinary life are quiet, yet profound. They remind us that history is not only made of monumental buildings or grand battles, but also of soft footsteps, whispered conversations, and everyday routines. Each task performed, each object used, each child's game played, contributes to a legacy that lingers gently in the soil, the walls, and the artifacts left behind. By observing these details, the ancient world becomes intimate and familiar, allowing imagination to wander calmly through streets, kitchens, gardens, and workshops of civilizations long past. In the ancient world, life and belief were intertwined so completely that even ordinary actions could carry sacred meaning. Gods and goddesses were not distant abstractions, but active participants in the rhythms of daily life. Their presence could be felt in the fields, the rivers, the wind, and the cycles of the sun and moon. Temples, altars, shrines, and sacred groves stood as silent reminders of a world where the spiritual and the mundane were gently inseparable. In Mesopotamia, The Sumerians believed in a pantheon of gods who controlled every aspect of life. Anu, the sky god, ruled from above, while Enki, god of water and wisdom, guided rivers and the fertility of the land. Each household had small shrines where people offered food, drink, or incense to gain favor and protection. Priests maintained larger temples, their voices rising in soft chants that echoed across courtyards, a quiet bridge between earth and heaven. Even the layout of the city reflected religious order. Ziggurats, massive step temples, were carefully oriented to align with the sun, reminding all who entered of the connection between the cosmos and human life. In Egypt, religion permeated every aspect of existence. The pharaoh was considered divine, a living link between gods and people, guiding the nation with wisdom and ritual observance. Temples dedicated to deities like Ra, Isis, and Osiris were centers of worship and community. Offerings of bread, beer, and incense were placed on altars, and priests performed ceremonies with precise movements and chants designed to maintain harmony between the human and divine worlds. Even tombs reflected this devotion, filled with amulets, carved reliefs, and painted scenes illustrating journeys to the afterlife. Mummification itself was a sacred art, carefully preserving the body so the soul could continue its voyage beyond death, a quiet testament to the Egyptians' belief in continuity and care. Across the Aegean, the Greeks wove gods into every story and every aspect of civic life. Temples to Athena, Apollo, and Zeus were not only architectural marvels, but centers of ritual, debate, and celebration. Mythology offered explanations for natural phenomena. The changing seasons, storms, and celestial movements were attributed to the moods and actions of gods and demigods. The Greeks performed sacrifices, festivals, and games in honor of these deities, blending competition, art, and prayer in ceremonies that brought communities together. Oracles and prophecies guided decisions, their subtle words interpreted with care, each answer a gentle thread in the tapestry of fate. In Mesoamerica, the Maya, Aztec, and Inca had rich mythologies that intertwined with astronomy, agriculture, and governance. Temples were often aligned with solstices or celestial events, emphasizing the connection between human actions and the cycles of the heavens. The Aztec sun god, Huitzilopochtli, required offerings to maintain cosmic balance, while the Mayan gods of rain and maize ensured the fertility of the fields. Ceremonies were carefully orchestrated, blending dance, music, and visual symbolism. Even the timing of planting and harvests was dictated by religious calendars, a reminder that the spiritual and the practical were always entwined. In India, Vedic traditions reveal another layer of religious life. Fire rituals, chants, and sacrifices were performed to honor a pantheon of gods controlling elements, seasons, and fate. The early texts, rich with hymns and instructions, reflect both devotion and philosophical inquiry, exploring the meaning of life, death, and the universe. Temples grew into architectural expressions of devotion, filled with carvings depicting stories of gods and heroes, their symbolism carefully crafted to teach, guide, and inspire. Pilgrimages to sacred rivers and mountains allowed ordinary people to participate in rituals that connected them to generations past and future. Even in ancient China, spiritual life was entwined with ancestor worship and harmony with nature. Temples and altars honored ancestors whose guidance was sought through offerings of food, incense, and ritual gestures. The heavens were observed meticulously, and celestial phenomena were interpreted as signs or guidance. Early Taoist and Confucian principles guided behavior, emphasizing balance, ethics, and the quiet rhythms of life, while ritual ceremonies marked transitions from birth to death, embedding spirituality in the mundane. Mythology was a universal lens through which humans understood the unknown. Creation myths abound, from the Enuma Elish of Mesopotamia, describing gods shaping the world from chaos, to the Greek myths of Titans and Olympians, to Indian stories of cosmic cycles and divine avatars. These myths offered structure, moral lessons, and comfort, explaining why the world was as it was, why humans experienced joy or suffering, and how one might live in harmony with forces larger than oneself. Even wars, floods, and natural disasters were framed within narratives that made the frightening comprehensible, softly easing anxiety with story and ritual. Rituals themselves carried subtle wisdom. Lighting a candle, pouring water, offering bread, or speaking a prayer was a gesture of awareness, a way to acknowledge forces beyond immediate perception. Festivals allowed communities to gather, laugh, feast, and remember their gods collectively. Music and chanting added resonance, while dance and movement mirrored celestial cycles or seasonal changes. Every act, even small, became part of a quiet, unfolding rhythm connecting people to time, nature, and each other. Some sacred practices remain enigmatic. The mysteries of Eleusis in Greece, where initiates underwent secret rites, are preserved only in hints and fragments. In Egypt, hidden chambers within temples reveal symbols whose meanings are debated even today. Across continents, objects such as amulets, carved figurines, or engraved stones hint at ritual functions that modern minds can only imagine. The quiet mystery of these practices, partially lost to time, invites reflection and gentle wonder rather than certainty, allowing the imagination to wander slowly through past belief. Religious symbolism often extended to everyday objects. Jewelry, pottery, and clothing could carry protective inscriptions. Colors, shapes, and patterns might invoke gods or cosmic forces. Architecture, too, was a form of devotion. Doors, walls, and alignments mirrored the heavens or the divine order of society. In these ways, life itself became a subtle expression of faith, a constant whisper of reverence woven into ordinary moments. The universality of myth and ritual underscores a profound truth. Across space and time, humans sought connection to forces larger than themselves. They observed, interpreted, and enacted these forces through story, ceremony, and symbol. In quiet contemplation of ancient temples, texts, or artifacts, it is possible to feel the same sense of reflection, awe, and curiosity that those long-ago civilizations felt. Their world, though distant, hums with a gentle presence, a reminder that belief and imagination are timeless companions. As temples stand empty, statues erode, and scrolls fade, the echoes of ancient religion remain in subtle ways. Observing the stars, offering a silent gesture of thanks, or contemplating a carved relief can bridge millennia, linking imagination to human experience across time. These sacred rhythms, while once central to everyday life, now invite gentle curiosity and reflection, encouraging the mind to wander calmly through stories, symbols, and quiet mysteries. Even without the noise of a bustling city or the voices of priests, the spiritual world of the ancients continues to resonate softly, like a faint, soothing melody carried across centuries. Across the ancient world, people quietly shaped their surroundings with ingenuity that sometimes rivals modern understanding. Even in the absence of electricity, motors, or modern machinery, civilizations developed tools, machines, and systems that enabled them to live, build, and explore with remarkable precision. Every invention, every carefully shaped stone or polished tool reflects both practicality and a deep sense of observation, a gentle intelligence woven into the rhythm of daily life. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians pioneered some of the earliest mechanical devices. They developed the wheel not only for transportation, but also for pottery, creating smoother, more uniform vessels. They devised plows that turned the soil efficiently, making the flat, fertile plains yield more grain with less effort. Canals, levees, and drainage systems allowed cities to manage the unpredictable waters of the Tigris and Euphrates, channeling life-giving rivers while protecting homes and crops. The precision of these systems, built thousands of years ago, quietly demonstrates an intimate understanding of water and soil, a knowledge gained through careful observation over generations. Egyptians brought engineering into harmony with both architecture and astronomy. The alignment of pyramids and temples required not only an eye for proportion, but also a keen understanding of geometry and celestial movement. Ramps, levers, and sledges moved massive stone blocks with subtle coordination, allowing entire structures to rise without the technologies we take for granted today. The Nile itself became an instrument of engineering, with intricate irrigation networks feeding crops and sustaining dense populations along its banks. Even monumental temples and statues carved from single blocks of stone testify to a blend of patience, skill, and imagination that remains quietly impressive. In the Indus Valley, cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa showcase a different kind of engineering: urban planning and infrastructure. Streets were laid out in grids, wells provided clean water, and drainage systems carried waste far from living areas. Some homes even had private bathrooms connected to these systems, a subtle reflection of hygiene and comfort. Bricks were standardized, sometimes baked, sometimes sun-dried, demonstrating early quality control. These advances may seem mundane compared to pyramids or ziggurats, yet they reveal an astonishing sophistication in civil engineering and urban foresight, quietly shaping the health and stability of entire communities. Across the Mediterranean, the Romans refined engineering to extraordinary levels. Aqueducts carried water across valleys and hills for miles, using gravity and precise gradients to maintain steady flow. Roads were paved with layered stones, some still intact today, their durability reflecting meticulous planning. Bridges and amphitheaters combined functionality with beauty, demonstrating an understanding of arches, weight distribution, and material resilience. Roman engineers even developed concrete that could harden underwater, enabling harbors and ports to thrive. Each structure was a quiet dialogue between human ambition and the physical world, blending efficiency with elegance. Ancient China contributed innovations that were equally subtle yet transformative. Early forms of seismographs detected earthquakes, alerting communities with delicate mechanisms that shifted small balls from dragons' mouths into the waiting mouths of frogs, signaling tremors far from the epicenter. They developed sophisticated water clocks, allowing precise measurement of hours and seasons. Metallurgy advanced with bronze casting, producing tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects with intricate designs. Canals and flood control projects shaped entire landscapes, channeling rivers and nourishing rice paddies with careful attention to seasonal flow. In Mesoamerica, civilizations like the Maya engineered observatories, causeways, and terraces that harmonized with their natural surroundings. Stone platforms were carefully leveled to align with celestial events, while agricultural terraces preserved soil and water for crops on steep hillsides. Ball courts, temples, and ceremonial centers were constructed with precise geometry, reflecting not only religious purpose, but also community organization. Even everyday items, such as grinding stones and pottery kilns, reveal practical engineering that balanced durability with ease of use. Ancient technology extended to medicine and craft as well. Surgical instruments in Egypt and India, often made from bronze or iron, were astonishingly sophisticated, allowing procedures that are recognizable to modern eyes. Needles, scalpels, and probes were designed for precision, and herbal medicines complemented physical treatment. Metalworking and carpentry reflected similarly quiet expertise. Chisels, hammers, and molds allowed artisans to produce tools, jewelry, and furniture with both function and beauty in mind. Technology, in this sense, was not separate from life. It was life integrated into the rhythm of survival, creativity, and ceremony. Even the simplest inventions carried subtle genius. The potter's wheel allowed uniform vessels, yet also provided a medium for artistic expression. Looms produced textiles not only for clothing, but for ritual and decoration. Water-lifting devices like shidduchs in Egypt or Persian wheel systems quietly increased productivity while maintaining gentle energy efficiency. Counting tools, early weights, and measurement systems allowed commerce and architecture to proceed with trust and accuracy. Every small invention added to a tapestry of knowledge, a quiet accumulation of human insight that spans continents and centuries. Some technologies were designed with a mind towards subtlety and endurance. Megalithic constructions, such as Stonehenge or the Nabta Playa circles, required precise measurement, transport of massive stones, and understanding of celestial alignment, all without written blueprints or modern tools. The effort was distributed across communities, sometimes over generations, revealing patience and social coordination as much as mechanical skill. Each stone, each measurement becomes a quiet testament to observation, intuition, and perseverance. The legacy of ancient engineering is not only in the monuments that survive, but in the rhythms of daily life they created. Canals carried water to fields, roads connected communities, kilns baked clay for storage, and simple plows turned soil for sustenance. These inventions, whether monumental or modest, shaped how humans lived, worked, and thought. They demonstrate that ingenuity is not only about discovery, but about adaptation, observation, and the patient refinement of tools and techniques over time. Walking through ancient ruins in imagination, one can feel the invisible hands of engineers shaping the past. Stones are placed just so, channels carry water silently to nourish life, ramps allow movement of massive objects, and tools lie quietly, ready for the next artisan to grasp them. The world was crafted with subtle intelligence, each action precise, deliberate, and harmonious. Even when civilizations fall or cities are buried beneath sand, water, or vegetation, their quiet ingenuity persists, whispering across millennia. Technology and engineering, in the ancient sense, were never separate from the flow of life. They were extensions of observation, creativity, and problem-solving, quietly enhancing survival, beauty, and ritual. Each wheel, plow, ramp, aqueduct, or observatory becomes more than a tool or building. It becomes a gentle reflection of human curiosity, patience, and care. In contemplating these achievements, it is possible to sense the rhythms of ancient labor, thought, and ingenuity flowing like a soft current across time, inviting both admiration and calm reflection. Long before modern libraries and digital archives, humans found ways to capture thought, record events, and preserve knowledge through symbols etched, painted, or pressed into clay, stone, and papyrus. Writing was not only a tool for communication, but also a quiet bridge across generations, allowing ideas, rituals, and histories to linger long after their creators had passed. Each ancient script represents a dialogue with time, a gentle whisper of the minds that shaped civilizations. In Mesopotamia, the earliest form of writing, cuneiform, emerged as simple pictographs pressed into clay tablets. These tablets recorded commerce, legal contracts, and taxes, ensuring that grain, silver, and livestock could be accounted for with precision. Over time, cuneiform evolved into a complex system capable of expressing poetry, myth, and philosophy. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known stories, was inscribed in this script, carrying reflections on friendship, mortality, and the natural world. The clay tablets, heavy and enduring, quietly preserved not only economic transactions but also the human desire to understand existence. In Egypt, hieroglyphs adorned tombs, temples, and monuments, blending pictorial beauty with meaning. Some symbols conveyed sounds, others entire words or concepts, allowing scribes to record prayers, spells, and historical events. The Rosetta Stone, centuries later, would reveal the secret to deciphering these symbols, but for millennia, much of the knowledge remained a gentle mystery waiting patiently beneath carved stone. Temples became living libraries with walls that silently chronicled kings' deeds, religious practices, and cosmic understanding, a calm archive visible to both gods and humans. The Indus Valley civilization developed script that remains undeciphered, etched onto small seals and tablets. Each symbol is a puzzle, a delicate trace of human thought, whose meaning eludes modern minds. These inscriptions were likely used for trade, ownership, or ritual, hinting at a sophisticated system of communication embedded in daily life. The mystery itself invites reflection, a quiet reminder that much of human knowledge is fleeting, and that what survives depends on chance, environment, and preservation. In China, early scripts evolved from oracle bones, tortoise shells, and ox scapulae, inscribed with questions for the ancestors or gods. The answers, read by diviners, guided kings and communities in agriculture, warfare, and governance. These inscriptions, some of the earliest forms of Chinese writing, reveal meticulous observation, careful reasoning, and deep reverence for unseen forces. Over centuries, characters evolved into calligraphy, blending utility with artistry, turning written language into both communication and meditative practice. Even in the Americas, the Maya developed an intricate hieroglyphic script, carved into stone monuments or painted on codices. These records tracked astronomy, political history, and ritual cycles, connecting events on Earth with movements in the heavens. Calendars, dynastic records, and ceremonial instructions were encoded with precision, revealing a culture deeply attuned to patterns, time, and sacred rhythm. Though many codices were destroyed, the surviving texts offer glimpses into the layered intelligence of Maya scribes, preserving both mundane and cosmic knowledge. Lost knowledge is a gentle theme woven through history. Entire libraries disappeared beneath waves, sands, and fire. The Library of Alexandria, perhaps the most famous, once housed countless scrolls from across the known world. Scholars traveled there seeking wisdom, yet fires, conquest, and decay claimed much of its content. Only fragments remain, hints of ideas, discoveries, and philosophies that might otherwise have shaped entire civilizations. Similarly, in the deserts of Egypt and the sands of Arabia, manuscripts, scrolls, and inscriptions were buried, preserving glimpses of ritual, astronomy, and literature, waiting silently for rediscovery. Some tools for preserving knowledge were deceptively simple yet effective. Clay tablets could survive floods, fires, and millennia if stored carefully. Papyrus scrolls, while fragile, allowed portability and wide dissemination. Ink, pigment, and carving techniques required subtle skill to endure the passage of time. Even oral traditions, recited carefully by generations, served as living repositories of lore, history, and myth. The continuity of knowledge often depended not on permanence but on attention, repetition, and quiet dedication. Mathematics and accounting were among the first forms of recorded knowledge. Clay tokens in the Fertile Crescent represented quantities of grain or livestock, gradually evolving into abstract symbols on tablets. Numbers were written not just to count, but to plan irrigation, measure land, and manage trade. Geometry appeared in temple construction, astronomy, and land surveying, its principles preserved in both writing and stone. These records quietly demonstrate that writing was not just a tool of expression, but a framework for understanding the world and shaping human life. Even when knowledge was lost or partially forgotten, it left traces that invite careful attention. Inscriptions, carvings, and texts often reveal fragments of stories, instructions, or observations, like a soft echo across centuries. The careful study of these traces has allowed modern scholars to reconstruct calendars, rituals, and social structures, and to glimpse the thought processes of minds long gone. Every fragment carries potential, inviting reflection on the impermanence of human creation and the enduring curiosity that drives discovery. In some cases, writing captured ideas too complex for ordinary speech. Philosophical reflections, moral codes, and speculative cosmology were encoded in symbols, allowing abstract thought to survive. The Hammurabi Code in Mesopotamia recorded laws in clear, permanent form, while the Upanishads of India preserved spiritual inquiry and meditative insight. Inscriptions in Greek and Roman temples commemorated victories, treaties, and civic philosophy. Each record represents an effort to impose order, meaning, or guidance upon the world, quietly linking generations through thought and observation. The act of reading these ancient records today is itself a meditation. Clay tablets pressed with cuneiform, hieroglyphs carved into temple walls, or delicate Maya codices invite a slow, attentive mind to trace symbols, imagine their meanings, and feel the rhythm of ancient thought. In these quiet moments, it becomes possible to connect with the intellectual lives of those long gone, sensing their curiosity, care, and attention. Knowledge, even when partially lost, persists as a soft current, carrying insight across centuries and continents. Sometimes, the greatest fascination lies in what remains unknown. Undeciphered scripts, missing scrolls, and unexplained symbols form gentle mysteries, inviting imagination and patience. These gaps remind us that human history is not entirely knowable, and yet there is a calm pleasure in contemplating what might have been. Rituals, stories, inventions, or philosophies that quietly shaped daily life but have disappeared from memory. The absence itself becomes a space for reflection, a quiet bridge between past and present. Through writing and record-keeping, civilizations extended their presence beyond immediate time and space. What survives today, tables, scrolls, inscriptions, serves as a whisper from the past, inviting careful observation and gentle reflection. Each mark on clay or stone carries a pulse of human thought, a quiet connection between lives separated by millennia. The act of imagining these ancient scribes working patiently to preserve thought is an invitation to slow down, to notice, and to wander gently through history without urgency, letting the past fold softly into awareness. In ancient civilizations, the care of the body and mind was intertwined with observation, ritual, and subtle experimentation. Healing was as much an art as a science, blending practical treatments with spiritual practices, a delicate balance that shaped how people lived, recovered, and understood the fragility of life. The medicines, instruments, and practices of the past reveal quiet ingenuity and a patient attention to the rhythms of the human body. In Egypt, physicians were trained in temples dedicated to gods of health and medicine. The Edwin Smith papyrus, dating back over 3,500 years, describes surgical procedures, treatments for wounds, and diagnoses of injuries in precise, almost clinical language. Broken bones were set, wounds were cleaned, and bandages applied with careful technique. Remedies often combined practical ingredients like honey or willow bark with prayers and rituals, reflecting a belief that the body and spirit were inseparable. Herbs, oils, and poultices were administered gently, and treatments were often personalized, indicating both observation and empathy. Mesopotamian medicine blended herbal knowledge with incantations and ritual. Physicians, or asu, prescribed poultices, decoctions, and ointments made from plants, minerals, and animal products. Another class of healer, the ashipu, performed rituals to ward off illness, addressing what was perceived as spiritual imbalance or divine displeasure. Clay tablets reveal lists of ingredients and treatments ranging from aromatic resins for infections to mixtures designed to ease digestive discomfort. The combination of physical and spiritual care created a holistic approach where attention, patience, and ritual reinforced each other quietly. In India, the Ayurvedic tradition developed detailed systems for understanding the body, mind, and natural elements. Ancient texts describe the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, as energies governing physiology and temperament. Treatments combined herbal medicines, massage, meditation, and dietary guidance, emphasizing balance and prevention rather than mere symptom relief. Surgeons performed procedures such as cataract removal or minor operations with surprisingly sophisticated instruments, demonstrating careful observation, steady hands, and respect for patient well-being. Healing was a slow, attentive art woven seamlessly into daily life. Chinese medicine, practiced for thousands of years, also approached healing as an integration of body, mind, and environment. Texts like the Huangdi Neijing, or Yellow Emperors in a canon, describe the flow of energy, or qi, through the body, and how imbalances could cause illness. Acupuncture, herbal remedies, and diet were applied carefully, always with attention to individual constitution. Even exercise, breathing techniques, and meditation were considered essential components of health. Ancient physicians meticulously observed pulse, tongue, and complexion, creating a subtle diagnostic system that balanced observation with gentle intervention. The Greeks contributed theories of balance and humours. Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine, believed that health depended on the equilibrium of blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Treatments involved diet, exercise, herbal remedies, and sometimes bloodletting, all guided by observation and moderation. Medical texts reveal careful study of symptoms, anatomy, and environmental factors, reflecting a patient, reasoned approach. Temples of Asclepius served as centers for healing, where patients might sleep and receive guidance through dreams interpreted as divine instructions, combining science with spiritual care. Roman medicine borrowed from Greek knowledge while emphasizing practicality and hygiene. Public baths, aqueducts, and sewage systems were themselves a form of preventative medicine, reducing disease through cleanliness. Surgeons used specialized instruments for a variety of procedures, including cataract removal and amputations. Pharmacies in the empire offered dried herbs, mineral compounds, and ointments, often prepared with precise instructions to treat wounds, infections, or digestive ailments. Even battlefield medicine was highly organized, with field hospitals and trained staff attending to soldiers quietly and methodically. Mesoamerican civilizations also practiced sophisticated medicine. The Aztecs utilized over 1,000 different herbs for ailments ranging from fevers to wounds. Temazcals, or sweat lodges, provided cleansing, relaxation, and spiritual purification. The Maya combined herbal remedies with ritual, observing plants, animal behavior, and celestial events to guide treatment. Healing was an integrated experience, merging observation, intuition, and spiritual mindfulness. Even the choice of materials, plants, clays, and resins reflected careful knowledge of local ecosystems, a subtle intelligence embedded in everyday life. Across continents, dentistry and minor surgery were practiced with remarkable skill. Evidence from Egypt, the Indus Valley, and pre-Columbian Americas shows attempts at tooth extraction, treatment of abscesses, and use of natural anesthetics. Bones have been found healed after fractures, suggesting immobilization and careful care. Medical practice was hands-on, tactile, and deeply attentive, often guided by careful observation rather than abstract theory. The human body, fragile yet resilient, was treated with respect and gentle persistence. Ritual often accompanied physical treatment. In many cultures, healing involved offerings, prayers, chants, or ceremonies meant to invite spiritual favor. Illness was sometimes seen as a misalignment with divine forces or natural balance, and addressing it required attention to both body and spirit. Herbs might be combined with incantations, baths accompanied by chants, and dietary adjustments guided by celestial observation. The integration of the practical and spiritual provided not only potential physical relief, but also psychological comfort, a quiet reassurance that one was cared for on multiple levels. Even in ordinary households, knowledge of remedies passed quietly from generation to generation. Families cultivated herbs, prepared poultices, and maintained knowledge of safe foods and natural tonics. Such wisdom was often recorded in simple ways, on clay tablets, palm leaves, or orally through stories, ensuring continuity. Attention to subtle signs, patience in preparation, and observation of effects created a culture of careful, ongoing experimentation. Healing was a continuous dialogue between nature, observation, and gentle intervention. The legacy of ancient medicine is a reminder of human attentiveness and ingenuity. Instruments, texts, and artifacts that survive today are quiet markers of a deep, patient care for human life. They reveal that even without modern technology, civilizations understood anatomy, pharmacology, hygiene, and surgical technique in sophisticated ways. Yet what is most striking is the integration of observation, empathy, and spiritual mindfulness, a holistic approach that treated not only symptoms but the whole person. Walking through the practices of ancient healers in imagination, it is possible to sense the soft rhythms of daily care. Hands applying ointments, herbs crushed and mixed, bandages wrapped with precision, rituals performed with gentle chant. Patients rested, observed, and slowly recovered, guided by the subtle intelligence of practitioners who watched carefully, measured precisely, and listened attentively. These are not only stories of survival, but stories of quiet attention and human connection, preserved across centuries in texts, tools, and memory. Ancient medicine reminds us that healing is a patient art, a dialogue between body, mind, and environment. The tools, procedures, and remedies were crafted with care, observation, and a sense of reverence for life itself. Every herb, instrument, and technique is a gentle echo of thoughtfulness and ingenuity, inviting modern minds to slow down, to notice, and to appreciate the subtle intelligence of civilizations long past. In this reflection, the ancient world offers both curiosity and calm, a soothing passage through the quiet art of caring for human life. Warfare in the ancient world was both practical and symbolic, a quiet yet powerful force shaping civilizations, borders, and human experience. Battles were not only contests of strength, but also of observation, ingenuity, and strategy. Soldiers, commanders, and entire societies engaged with conflict in ways that required subtle planning, keen awareness of terrain, and careful attention to timing. Chariots were among the earliest technological innovations that transformed the battlefield. In Mesopotamia and Egypt, these vehicles drawn by horses allowed rapid movement and elevated status for warriors. The design of chariots balanced speed, stability, and offensive capability, often carrying archers or spearmen. Their effectiveness depended on terrain, coordination, and tactical placement, requiring both meticulous planning and nimble execution. Though often associated with spectacle, chariots quietly influenced the outcome of battles for centuries, demonstrating the early integration of engineering and strategy. Siege engines reflected another level of ingenuity. Catapults, battering rams, and torsion-based devices enabled armies to breach fortified walls, sometimes from great distances. In ancient Greece, engineers refined mechanisms that could hurl stones with surprising accuracy, while Romans developed sophisticated towers and mobile platforms to assault enemy fortifications. The design and use of these engines required observation of materials, mechanical principles, and timing, blending technology with the psychological impact of imposing machines upon defenders. Tactical formations were as crucial as technology. The Greek phalanx, with tightly packed rows of soldiers and overlapping shields, demonstrated coordination, discipline, and trust among warriors. Roman legions refined flexibility and adaptability, deploying cohorts with precise maneuvers to respond to terrain and enemy action. Cavalry and skirmishers often complemented infantry, exploiting speed, mobility, and deception. Commanders relied on observation of enemy formations, terrain features, and morale, adjusting their strategies in real time to subtle cues on the battlefield. Famous battles left quiet legacies that often influenced strategy long after the fighting ended. At Marathon, clever use of terrain and disciplined coordination allowed the Greeks to overcome a numerically superior Persian force. Thermopylae became a testament to strategic positioning and morale, even in the face of overwhelming odds. At Gaugamela, Alexander the Great demonstrated meticulous planning, integration of infantry and cavalry, and observation of enemy weaknesses, ensuring victory that reshaped the known world. Each of these encounters reveals how preparation, observation, and subtle tactical decisions could determine the course of history. Psychological warfare played a critical role. Armies used drums, horns, banners, and coordinated movements to intimidate opponents or signal maneuvers. Deception, including feigned retreats, ambushes, and misinformation, exploited human perception and expectation. Diplomacy, often intertwined with military action, alliances, treaties, and negotiations, could prevent bloodshed or secure strategic advantages. Commanders who observed both their forces and the enemy with patience and insight often achieved far more than brute strength alone could provide. Fortifications shaped defensive strategies and urban design. Walls, towers, moats, and gates reflected careful observation of terrain, materials, and attack methods. Cities such as Babylon, Jericho, and Mycenae integrated layered defenses, controlling access while providing refuge. Defensive architecture required patience and foresight, balancing strength, aesthetics, and functionality. The quiet presence of these fortifications often influenced the psychological landscape of both defenders and attackers, communicating power, security, and deterrence without a single blow being struck. The lives of soldiers reveal subtle aspects of warfare often overlooked. Armor, helmets, shields, and weapons were designed not only for protection and combat, but also for ritual and identity. Warriors trained extensively, sometimes from childhood, learning discipline, endurance, and teamwork. Rituals before and after battle, including prayers, offerings, and commemorations, provided structure and reassurance, connecting individual action to larger social and spiritual frameworks. Even the quiet act of polishing armor or sharpening weapons contributed to readiness, morale, and reflection. Naval warfare added complexity to strategy. Ships were designed for ramming, boarding, or missile attacks. Greek triremes with coordinated rowers and soldiers required precise synchronization, observation, and timing. In the Mediterranean, control of the sea allowed movement of troops, supplies, and information. Naval engagements were less about brute force and more about maneuver, discipline, and careful understanding of currents, wind, and enemy tactics, revealing the subtle sophistication of ancient maritime strategy. Logistics quietly determined the success of campaigns. Supply lines, food storage, water access, and transportation dictated where and when armies could march. Ancient generals observed terrain, climate, and available resources, making adjustments to ensure sustainability. Even a well-equipped army could fail without careful attention to these details, illustrating that much of warfare depended on patient planning and continuous observation rather than open combat alone. Weapons reflected both innovation and culture. Swords, spears, bows, and slings were crafted with attention to balance, durability, and functionality. Metallurgy evolved in tandem with military needs, producing sharper, lighter, or more resilient instruments of war. Siege tools, defensive structures, and battlefield fortifications illustrate that warfare was a blend of technology, observation, and artistry. Each weapon and defensive measure quietly tells the story of ingenuity, experimentation, and adaptation. Rituals of war extended beyond the battlefield. Triumphs, commemorations, and funerals honored fallen soldiers, reinforced social hierarchies, and transmitted lessons. Observation of enemy practices, study of prior battles, and the recording of campaigns ensured that knowledge accumulated across generations. Military treatises, inscriptions, and strategic manuals reflect careful thought, reflection, and analysis, offering insights into both human behavior and tactical innovation. Even in periods of prolonged peace, the principles of warfare influenced daily life. Fortified settlements, weapons production, and military training maintained societal structure and preparedness. Diplomacy and intelligence gathering reflected strategic thinking, observation, and subtle negotiation skills. The quiet discipline of planning, preparation, and observation shaped not only armies, but also the culture and identity of civilizations. Reflecting on ancient warfare, one senses a world where strength, patience, ingenuity, and subtle observation intertwined. Battles were not random clashes, but carefully orchestrated events, shaped by terrain, technology, human psychology, and social order. Commanders who observed, anticipated, and adapted often shaped history more profoundly than those who relied solely on force. Soldiers' lives, fortifications, and ritual practices reveal that even in the chaos of war, subtle patterns of discipline, reflection, and human ingenuity prevailed. Imagining the quiet rhythm of the ancient battlefield, chariots advancing, soldiers aligned, engineers preparing siege engines, signals flying across the lines, one senses not only tension, but also careful orchestration. Every movement, every observation, every decision contributed to the outcome, echoing the persistent human engagement with strategy, ingenuity, and disciplined thought. Warfare, in its ancient form, was a meditation on preparation, adaptation, and the quiet power of observation, leaving a legacy that shaped civilizations for millennia. Burials in the ancient world were quiet expressions of reverence, belief, and social structure. Tombs preserved not only the bodies of the deceased, but also their stories, wealth, and the values of their societies. The careful placement of objects, architecture, and rituals created a bridge between the living and the afterlife, while enigmatic artifacts and unexplained practices continue to spark fascination today. The Scythians, a nomadic people of the Eurasian steppes, constructed tombs that reflected both practicality and ritual. Burials often included warriors surrounded by weapons, gold ornaments, and, intriguingly, cannabis. Archaeologists have found cannabis seeds and remains in burial chambers, suggesting ritualistic or ceremonial use. Horses, sometimes adorned with harnesses and decorative elements, were buried alongside their masters, emphasizing the centrality of mobility, status, and symbolic power in life and death. These tombs, often hidden beneath kurgans or earth mounds, reveal a meticulous attention to both material and spiritual detail. In Egypt, tombs ranged from modest interments to grandiose pyramids, all carefully aligned and constructed to honor the deceased and guide them into the afterlife. Pharaohs' tombs, like those in the Valley of the Kings, included chambers with walls decorated in hieroglyphs and paintings depicting daily life, gods, and the journey to the afterworld. Hidden corridors and secret rooms reflected concerns about looting, protection, and ritual purity. Everyday items, from furniture to food, were included to provide comfort and sustenance in the next world, showing that even death was approached with careful planning and observation. Across continents, tombs of kings, queens, and elite individuals reveal both common practices and remarkable diversity. In China, the mausoleum of the first Qin emperor housed thousands of terracotta warriors, arranged in precise formations to guard the emperor in death. In pre-Columbian America, Moche tombs in Peru contained painted ceramics, textiles, and ceremonial objects, offering glimpses into status, ritual, and artistry. In Europe, Celtic burial mounds preserved individuals alongside gold torques, weapons, and vessels, reflecting social hierarchy and spiritual symbolism. These burials demonstrate how human societies invested immense effort into commemorating life through the silent language of objects. Funerary art and symbolism were carefully designed to communicate status, beliefs, and cultural values. Egyptian wall paintings often depicted the deceased interacting with gods, participating in rituals, or traveling through the afterlife. Greek tomb markers, or stelae, displayed reliefs of the deceased engaged in daily activities or heroic feats. Mesoamerican tombs included figurines, jewelry, and depictions of deities. These artistic choices were more than decorative. They encoded meaning, status, and narrative, ensuring that the essence of a life could endure quietly through symbols and imagery. Strange and enigmatic burial customs also abound. Some societies practice secondary burials, exhuming and reinterring bones to honor ancestral spirits. In other regions, mummification preserved not only the body but sometimes pets or ritual items alongside the deceased. Burial goods could include tools, food, weapons, or even entire miniature houses, representing a careful thought process about needs and identity in the afterlife. Such practices reflect an awareness of continuity, observation of life cycles, and a subtle understanding of human psychology, ensuring that memory and respect persisted across generations. Certain tombs remain shrouded in mystery. The purpose of hidden chambers, unusual artifacts, or seemingly impractical inclusions often puzzles modern scholars. For example, the Antikythera shipwreck yielded fragments of tomb-related objects whose origins and intended use are still debated. In China, some burial chambers were deliberately concealed with labyrinthine passages, leaving observers to wonder about protective intent, symbolic meaning, or secret rituals. These enigmas illustrate that even meticulous planning could leave questions for centuries, quietly bridging history with imagination. Rituals associated with burials were essential. Observing rites, chanting prayers, and performing offerings demonstrated social cohesion and spiritual care. Some cultures maintained ongoing ceremonies at tombs, marking anniversaries or seasonal events, subtly reinforcing family ties and communal memory. Even in quiet acts, such as placing a flower or polishing a tomb, human engagement with remembrance and respect persisted, creating a rhythm of observation, reflection, and emotional connection. The materials used in tomb construction also reveal careful attention. Stone, wood, clay, and metals were selected for durability, symbolic meaning, or aesthetic value. In Egypt, limestone and granite created lasting pyramids, while painted plaster preserved color and detail. In Mesoamerica, adobe and stone preserved murals, carvings, and ceremonial objects. The choice and treatment of materials demonstrate not only technical skill, but also a quiet mindfulness of longevity, symbolism, and care. Some tombs illustrate practical innovation alongside ritual. Drainage systems, sealed chambers, and climate-conscious placement preserved bodies and artifacts for centuries. Airflow, moisture, and light were considered in the architecture of burial sites. These subtle observations ensured both physical preservation and spiritual respect, blending engineering, artistry, and ritual in ways that modern observers can still appreciate. Burials also illuminate societal structure and hierarchy. The inclusion of attendants, servants, or animals in tombs reflected both status and cultural beliefs. Grave goods indicated wealth, profession, or spiritual affiliation. Observing these details allows modern researchers to reconstruct social norms, economy, and worldview, highlighting how death can reveal life. Even without written records, the careful arrangement of objects and bodies communicates priorities, values, and identity, silently transmitting knowledge across centuries. Across civilizations, tombs became quiet repositories of history, art, and science. They preserve evidence of metallurgy, ceramics, textiles, and architectural techniques, offering a window into technological, cultural, and spiritual life. Objects once intended for personal or ritual use now serve as touchstones for understanding patterns of trade, belief, and daily activity. Tombs are, in essence, archives of observation, experimentation, and subtle human ingenuity. Reflecting on these ancient burials, one senses patience, care, and reverence. Each tomb, whether simple or grand, required observation of materials, planning, and meticulous attention to detail. Funerary practices were often intertwined with astronomy, geography, and ritual timing, ensuring alignment with natural and spiritual cycles. Even the smallest choice, a placement of a cup, a carved symbol, or a hidden chamber, conveyed thought, intention, and respect. Ancient tombs quietly connect us with humanity's enduring contemplation of life, death, and legacy. Imagining these spaces, one envisions chambers filled with objects arranged carefully, walls painted with symbolic scenes, and corridors designed to guide spirits or protect treasures. Horses, servants, or ceremonial items lie in repose alongside the deceased. Candles, incense, or offerings may have once flickered in quiet rituals. The stillness of tombs carries a gentle rhythm of memory, observation, and reverence. Across cultures, these silent spaces preserve stories, ideas, and mysteries, allowing modern observers to experience the deliberate thought and careful craftsmanship invested in honoring the departed. Ancient civilizations observed the sky with a combination of wonder, patience, and careful record-keeping. Celestial bodies were not only objects of curiosity, but also tools for understanding time, guiding agriculture, and marking sacred events. Temples, pyramids, and stone circles often aligned with the sun, moon, and stars, reflecting a subtle harmony between human life and the cosmos. In Egypt, temples were designed to capture sunlight during specific events. The Temple of Abu Simbel, for example, aligns so that twice a year, sunlight illuminates the statues of the gods inside the sanctuary. Such precision required careful observation of the solar path across the horizon, patience over years, and intricate architectural planning. Similarly, pyramids were aligned with cardinal points and specific stars, blending geometric knowledge with astronomical insight. The Egyptians' keen attention to celestial patterns provided guidance for religious rituals and agricultural cycles alike. Mesopotamian astronomers made systematic records of stars, planets, and eclipses. Clay tablets from Babylon reveal careful observations of planetary movements, allowing priests to predict celestial events and develop early calendars. The Babylonians tracked the moon's cycles to establish months and seasons, integrating astronomical knowledge into both civic planning and ritual life. Observing celestial rhythms became a disciplined practice, quietly influencing societal organization and temporal understanding. Stone circles and megalithic structures in Europe, such as Stonehenge, illustrate another form of alignment with the heavens. Shadows, sunrise and sunset on solstices and equinoxes were incorporated into these designs, signaling key points in the agricultural calendar. These alignments demonstrate that ancient people combined careful observation with collective effort, creating structures that communicated time, ritual significance, and cultural identity across generations. In Mesoamerica, the Maya developed complex calendars based on meticulous observation of the sun, moon, and Venus. Their long count calendar, along with the Tzolk'in and Harb cycles, allowed precise tracking of days, months, and years. Astronomical records guided ceremonial life, agricultural planning, and civic events, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of cycles and periodicity. The Maya also constructed observatories where priests could study planetary motion and predict eclipses, blending observation with ceremonial importance. Greek astronomers and mathematicians contributed to predictive astronomy. Figures like Hipparchus catalogued stars and refined calculations of celestial positions. The Antikythera mechanism, a bronze device recovered from a shipwreck, reveals knowledge of lunar and solar cycles, eclipses, and planetary motion. This intricate instrument illustrates the blending of observation, calculation, and mechanical ingenuity, allowing ancient people to model the cosmos with remarkable precision. In China, astronomers observed planetary movements, comets, and eclipses, often recording events in court chronicles. Observations informed calendars, festivals, and agricultural planning. Instruments such as armillary spheres, water clocks, and gnomons helped track time and align rituals with celestial events. These tools demonstrate patient measurement, meticulous attention, and integration of observation into daily life and governance, revealing the quiet power of careful calculation. Celestial myths across cultures often reflected observational accuracy. In Egypt, stories of Osiris and the rising of Orion relate directly to seasonal changes and star positions. Greek myths embedded constellations and planetary phenomena into tales of gods and heroes, blending narrative with empirical observation. Mesoamerican myths about the sun and moon often corresponded to observable celestial events, ensuring that storytelling and astronomy were intertwined, guiding societal understanding of time and natural rhythms. Early calendars were fundamental to daily life. Lunar and solar cycles dictated planting, harvesting, and festivals. The Egyptian civil calendar, with 12 months of 30 days plus extra days for alignment, provided predictability for civic and religious life. Babylonian lunisolar calendars balanced moon cycles with solar years. In China, intercalary months adjusted calendars to maintain agricultural and ritual precision. These systems required careful observation, continuous correction, and disciplined record-keeping, revealing the subtle sophistication of early timekeeping. Observing eclipses and planetary conjunctions often carried both practical and spiritual significance. Predicting solar and lunar eclipses required careful monitoring over years, noting recurring patterns. In Mesopotamia and China, eclipse prediction was sometimes linked to omens, influencing political decisions and ceremonial timing. Observation thus blended empirical attention with cultural interpretation, reflecting both analytical skill and human imagination. Astronomy also guided navigation and exploration. Celestial knowledge allowed sailors to orient themselves on rivers and seas, using stars to determine direction and estimate distance. Phoenician and Polynesian navigators relied on careful observation of constellations, winds, and tides to traverse vast distances. Mapping stars against terrestrial features provided a quiet but essential framework for trade, migration, and cultural exchange, demonstrating the practical impact of celestial observation on daily life. Predictive astronomy revealed the subtle patience of ancient scholars. Calculating the timing of solstices, equinoxes, eclipses, or planetary cycles required long-term observation, careful recording, and refinement of techniques. Instruments, alignment of buildings, and ceremonial timing were all informed by these predictions, blending empirical study with spiritual and social practices. Ancient societies observed the heavens not only to mark time, but to structure life, ritual, and civic activity in harmony with cosmic rhythms. Even small artifacts and inscriptions illustrate profound observational skill. Star charts, gnomons, carved markers, and celestial diagrams preserved knowledge across generations. Observation of the sky was often institutionalized in temples, observatories, or royal courts, ensuring continuity and accuracy. Knowledge accumulated gradually, quietly shaping agriculture, ritual, and governance, while also inspiring stories, myths, and symbolic frameworks. Reflecting on ancient astronomy and calendars, one senses a patient engagement with the cosmos, a deliberate effort to harmonize human life with natural rhythms. Temples, pyramids, observatories, and calendars stand as evidence of subtle attention, careful measurement, and long-term planning. Celestial observation influenced planting and harvesting, guided rituals, and shaped societal organization, creating a quiet persistent rhythm connecting humans with the universe. Imagining the ancient observer gazing at the rising sun, the waxing moon, or the slow drift of stars, one senses both wonder and disciplined attention. Each observation, calculation, and alignment carried meaning for agriculture, governance, and spirituality. The quiet continuity of this practice across cultures, continents, and centuries reveals humanity's enduring fascination with the heavens and the patient, deliberate methods used to understand and harmonize with the cosmos. Art, music, and storytelling were subtle threads that wove together the lives, beliefs, and identities of ancient civilizations. They recorded memory, celebrated ritual, and captured imagination, allowing humans to express emotion, convey knowledge, and create shared cultural landscapes. Each fresco, carving, instrument, and song reflects a quiet attentiveness to both the physical and spiritual world. Frescoes and murals adorned walls of temples, tombs, and palaces, preserving scenes of daily life, ceremonial activity, and mythological narratives. In Minoan Crete, vivid frescoes depicted bull-leaping rituals, marine life, and religious ceremonies, illustrating both movement and social significance. Egyptian tombs featured intricate paintings of farming, hunting, and offerings, preserving not only artistic skill but also cultural priorities. These visual narratives communicated values, beliefs, and social norms, quietly bridging generations. Sculptures and carvings captured both physical likeness and symbolic meaning. Greek statues celebrated human form, athleticism, and idealized proportions, blending observation with philosophical reflection. In Mesopotamia, reliefs depicted rulers, gods, and mythic scenes, reinforcing authority and divine order. In Africa, Nok terracotta figures, carved with geometric precision, preserved ritual and identity. Even small figurines or amulets conveyed meaning, demonstrating the careful attention and subtle storytelling embedded in material culture. Mosaics adorned floors and walls in Roman and Byzantine contexts, turning domestic and civic spaces into visual narratives. Tiny colored stones formed detailed images of animals, gods, and everyday scenes, revealing patience, precision, and an eye for harmony. Mosaics often told stories of myth or history, quietly conveying cultural memory to those who walked among them. In public spaces, they reflected shared values, aesthetics, and collective identity, turning ordinary surfaces into enduring messages. Music accompanied ritual, ceremony, and daily life. Lyres, flutes, drums, and harps were among the instruments crafted with care, observation, and acoustic understanding. In Sumeria, harps and lyres were used in temples to accompany hymns and prayers. In Egypt, sistrums, flutes, and percussion provided rhythm for processions and offerings. In China, bronze bells and stringed instruments supported court rituals, while in Mesoamerica, flutes, drums, and rattles accompanied ceremonies honoring deities. Musical practices demonstrate both technical skill and cultural observation, blending sound with purpose and meaning. Songs were carriers of memory and tradition. Hymns, chants, and epics preserved knowledge, history, and values across generations. The Homeric epics in Greece combined narrative with performance, oral technique, and communal experience, providing both entertainment and moral framework. In India, Vedic chants maintained precise pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation, ensuring continuity of spiritual knowledge. Songs and chants were carefully structured, reflecting deep attention to pattern, memory, and cultural cohesion. Oral storytelling was central to passing knowledge and cultural values. Elders, bards, and priests narrated legends, myths, and historical events, creating a living repository of experience. African griots preserved history through carefully crafted narratives, combining rhythm, voice, and mnemonic devices. Indigenous peoples across the Americas conveyed cosmology, genealogy, and practical knowledge through elaborate storytelling techniques. Observation, Repetition and attentive listening were essential, ensuring that stories endured with clarity and resonance. Epic recitations required both skill and subtle attention. Performers memorized long narratives, often improvising or adapting content to the audience or context. Recitations conveyed moral lessons, historical memory, and entertainment, preserving cultural continuity. In Scandinavia, skalds recited sagas and heroic poems, maintaining societal identity and memory. In Polynesia, chants narrated voyages, genealogies, and cosmology, linking the listener to both the past and the environment. Symbolism in art and decoration carried profound meaning. Colors, shapes, and materials were carefully chosen to convey spiritual, political, or personal messages. Egyptian hieroglyphs embedded layered symbolism in tombs and temples. Celtic knotwork encoded ideas of continuity and the interconnection of life. Mayan murals and pottery depicted gods, celestial events, and ritual acts. Symbols allowed societies to communicate complex ideas subtly, preserving layers of meaning over time and space. Creativity shaped identity and memory in ways that transcended the material. Art, music, and storytelling established cohesion, transmitted values, and inspired reflection. They created shared experiences connecting individuals to communities, deities, and history. Even small artifacts, a painted vase, a carved amulet, or a musical instrument, embodied observation, technical skill, and cultural sensibility, quietly linking creator, object, and audience. Art also documented innovation and adaptation. Observing nature, humans depicted flora, fauna, celestial events, and human activity, blending empirical attention with creative expression. Reliefs recorded agricultural cycles, hunting patterns, or astronomical phenomena. Instruments reflected experimentation with sound, resonance, and technique. Storytelling encoded both fact and interpretation, capturing subtle lessons about behavior, morality, and survival. Creativity became a conduit for reflection, observation, and cultural memory. Ritual and performance intertwined with artistic practice. Music and storytelling accompanied religious ceremonies, agricultural festivals, and rites of passage. Observation of timing, rhythm, and communal participation ensured meaningful experiences. Ceremonial art and performance provided subtle guidance, reinforcing shared values, history, and spiritual continuity. In this way, art and music were not merely aesthetic, but integral to social cohesion and cultural transmission. Even in private life, art and storytelling carried quiet significance. Pottery decorations, domestic murals, personal instruments, and oral tales reflected individual identity, familial memory, and personal expression. Observation, care, and attention shaped everyday creativity, turning ordinary objects into vessels of culture. Across time, these small expressions accumulated into enduring legacies, allowing future generations to glimpse the lives, values, and imagination of their ancestors. Reflecting on ancient art, music, and storytelling, one senses patient observation, disciplined skill, and subtle ingenuity. Each brushstroke, carved figure, plucked string, or recited verse required both attention and intent. Societies cultivated creativity as a form of memory, education, and expression, blending aesthetic beauty with practical, spiritual, and social purpose. Art became a quiet archive of human experience, preserving both what was seen and what was imagined. Imagining ancient spaces filled with music, performance, and visual art, one perceives a rhythm of life that is both intimate and communal. Frescoes catch sunlight, instruments resonate in temple halls, and storytellers' voices echo across generations. Symbols, patterns, and melodies carry meaning, observation, and reflection. Art, music, and storytelling reveal not only technical skill but also patience, perception, and the enduring human desire to communicate, remember, and inspire. Ancient civilizations carefully observed, shaped, and celebrated the natural world. Agriculture was not merely survival, it was an intricate dialogue between humans, plants, animals, and the environment. Terraces, irrigation systems, and crop management techniques reveal ingenuity, patience, and a subtle understanding of ecosystems, allowing societies to thrive across deserts, river valleys, and mountains. Terrace farming transformed hillsides into arable land. In the Andes, the Inca carved layered fields along steep slopes, creating microclimates that allowed diverse crops to flourish. These terraces conserved water, prevented erosion, and maximized sunlight exposure. In Southeast Asia, rice paddies utilize step terraces to control flooding and soil fertility. Across continents, terrace systems reflect careful observation of slope, soil, and water flow, demonstrating the quiet intelligence behind sustaining life in challenging environments. Irrigation was a cornerstone of agricultural success. The Egyptians harnessed the Nile with canals, dikes, and basin systems, controlling seasonal floods and distributing water efficiently. Mesopotamian civilizations dug canals and reservoirs, regulating river flow to nourish fields. In China, early engineers developed dikes and levees along the Yellow River, balancing irrigation and flood prevention. These systems required patience, continuous observation, and adaptive maintenance, blending practical engineering with ecological awareness. Domestication of plants and animals shaped both diet and society. Wheat, barley, rice, and maize provided staple nutrition, while legumes, fruits, and vegetables added variety and sustainability. Early societies observed growth cycles, soil conditions, and seasonal patterns, selectively breeding crops for resilience, yield, or flavor. Animals such as sheep, goats, cattle, and llamas were integrated into agriculture, transportation, and ritual life. Domestication required careful attention to behavior, health, and reproduction, creating long-term relationships that influenced culture and economy. Unique crops and cultivation techniques demonstrate ingenuity and environmental adaptation. The ancient Egyptians grew flax for linen, while the Mayans cultivated cacao for ceremonial and culinary use. In the Fertile Crescent, early farmers rotated crops to maintain soil fertility, a quiet practice ensuring sustainability. Citrus fruits, olives, and grapes were cultivated along Mediterranean coasts, supporting nutrition, trade, and ritual. Observing soil, climate, and growth cycles allowed humans to fine-tune agricultural practices over centuries, quietly transforming ecosystems. Sacred gardens and orchards reflected both aesthetic and spiritual priorities. Temples, palaces, and tombs often included carefully tended gardens, with plants chosen for symbolic, medicinal, or culinary purposes. In Mesopotamia, gardens featured date palms, herbs, and flowers arranged for beauty and utility. Egyptian temple gardens incorporated papyrus, lotus, and fruit trees, blending ritual, observation, and practical nourishment. Gardens were spaces for reflection, ceremony, and quiet engagement with the natural world. Water management extended beyond irrigation. Reservoirs, cisterns, and aqueducts provided drinking water, supported livestock, and maintained urban centers. Roman aqueducts transported water across miles using precise gradients and engineering observation to maintain flow. In India, stepwells and tanks collected rainwater, sustaining communities in dry seasons. Observing rainfall, groundwater, and river patterns allowed ancient engineers to predict, plan, and manage water resources efficiently, demonstrating subtle understanding of hydrology. The interplay of agriculture and astronomy was also vital. Observing solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles guided planting and harvesting schedules. The Maya and Egyptians timed sowing and irrigation according to celestial events, linking practical observation with cultural ritual. Early calendars and astronomical knowledge ensured crops were nurtured at optimal times, integrating natural cycles with human planning and reflection. Pollination, soil health, and pest management were understood empirically. Ancient farmers noticed beneficial insects, crop rotation effects, and soil enrichment methods, applying subtle experimentation to improve yields. Composting, manure use, and selective planting demonstrated awareness of ecological balance. These practices reflect a patient engagement with cause and effect, quietly building knowledge through observation, trial, and adaptation. Domesticated animals contributed to both agriculture and culture. Oxen, horses, and water buffalo aided ploughing, while chickens, ducks, and pigeons provided eggs, meat, and communication. In some cultures, animals were integrated into ritual life, symbolizing fertility, prosperity, or protection. Observation of behavior, health, and environmental suitability ensured both survival and cultural significance, illustrating the intertwined nature of agriculture and society. Ancient societies also celebrated nature through ceremonial landscapes. Sacred groves, orchards, and temple gardens embodied spiritual and practical values, connecting humans with deities, ancestors, and the environment. In Mesopotamia, gardens were associated with fertility and divine favor. In India, sacred groves preserved biodiversity while serving ritual purposes. Observing plant growth, seasonal change, and ecological relationships allowed humans to create landscapes that were simultaneously functional, aesthetic, and symbolic. Agricultural innovation extended to storage and preservation. Granaries, silos, and wine or oil amphorae allowed food to endure beyond seasonal limits. Egyptians, Romans, and Mesopotamians designed storage to prevent spoilage, pests, and moisture damage. Observation of temperature, humidity, and material properties ensured longevity, illustrating subtle attention to both immediate needs and long-term planning. Reflecting on ancient agriculture, one senses the quiet intelligence underlying human interaction with the natural world. Terraces, irrigation channels, and cultivated fields are evidence of careful observation, experimentation, and adaptation. Domesticated crops and animals combined with ceremonial landscapes demonstrate how humans harmonized practical necessity with cultural and spiritual expression. Agriculture was not only survival, it was a patient, deliberate engagement with cycles, ecosystems, and human imagination. Imagining ancient landscapes, one can see rice terraces cascading along hillsides, Nile canals flowing with seasonal abundance, orchards tended with precision, and granaries silently storing harvests. Farmers, priests, and observers worked with patience, noticing subtle patterns in soil, rainfall, and celestial cycles. Fields, gardens, and livestock became living archives of knowledge, blending observation, skill, and reverence. Across continents and centuries, these quiet innovations nurtured civilizations, linking human life intimately with the rhythms of nature. History is filled with individuals whose quiet ingenuity, courage, and vision shaped civilizations in ways both subtle and profound. Some were rulers guiding entire societies, others were inventors, priests, or scholars whose contributions left lasting impressions. Their stories illuminate the human capacity for creativity, resilience, and curiosity, often unnoticed amidst the broader sweep of time. Kings and queens sometimes defied expectations with unusual methods of governance or personal eccentricities. Pharaoh Hatshepsut of Egypt ruled as a female pharaoh in a male-dominated hierarchy, commissioning monumental architecture and establishing trade expeditions that enriched her kingdom. Despite centuries passing, her mortuary temple remains a testament to her strategic vision and artistic patronage. Similarly, Ashoka the Great of India embraced non-violence after a period of conquest, promoting social welfare, animal protection, and moral guidance. These leaders shaped both the policies and values of their societies, quietly influencing generations to come. Inventors and engineers transformed daily life with their subtle innovations. The ancient Greeks developed the water screw, later known as Archimedes' screw, enabling efficient irrigation and water transport. In China, Zhang Heng created early seismographs, capable of detecting distant earthquakes through clever mechanical design. In Mesopotamia, metal workers refined techniques to produce stronger tools and weapons, advancing both agriculture and defense. Such innovations required patience, observation, and a profound understanding of natural principles, quietly enhancing human capability. Priests, scholars, and scribes preserved and interpreted knowledge across centuries. Babylonian astronomers charted planetary motion, predicting eclipses and developing calendars, while Egyptian scribes meticulously recorded medical treatments, rituals, and engineering practices. In India, scholars preserved mathematical and philosophical texts, exploring concepts of zero, infinity, and geometry. These individuals acted as careful observers and meticulous recorders, ensuring that insight survived even as civilizations rose and fell. Explorers and travelers pushed the boundaries of known lands. Polynesian navigators traversed vast stretches of ocean using stars, waves, and bird behavior to guide their way. Pytheas of Greece sailed to northern Europe, mapping coastlines and documenting climate patterns. These journeys required patience, observation, and adaptive ingenuity, expanding human understanding of geography, climate, and culture. Their discoveries quietly connected distant peoples and laid the foundations for trade, communication, and cultural exchange. Some extraordinary individuals achieved survival against impossible odds. Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived 2 atomic bombings in Japan, demonstrating resilience and fortitude in the face of unparalleled catastrophe. Though separated from broader historical patterns, stories like his highlight human adaptability, strength, and quiet endurance, inspiring reflection on both the fragility and persistence of life. Innovation often emerged in the arts. Architects, sculptors, and musicians introduced ideas that reshaped cultural expression. In Greece, the development of the Corinthian column combined structural function with aesthetic refinement. In Egypt, artisans crafted intricate jewelry and ceremonial objects, blending technique with symbolic meaning. Musical innovators refined instruments, scales, and notation systems, shaping auditory landscapes that endured for centuries. Each of these contributions required careful observation, technical mastery, and creative vision, subtly influencing the rhythm of human experience. Certain scholars challenged conventional understanding. Al-Khwarizmi in the Islamic Golden Age formalized algorithms and algebra, quietly transforming mathematics. Hypatia of Alexandria explored philosophy, astronomy, and mathematics, advancing knowledge and teaching generations of students. In ancient China, Shen Kuo studied geology, magnetism, and meteorology, integrating observation, experimentation, and documentation. These individuals demonstrated patience, meticulous attention, and imaginative thinking, leaving legacies that quietly underpin modern knowledge. Survival and ingenuity often intersected. Early explorers, farmers, or engineers needed to solve practical problems daily. In the Fertile Crescent, irrigation required precise observation of rainfall, soil, and water flow. In Mesopotamia, city planners organized sewage and road systems to sustain dense populations. Each small innovation, from an improved plow to a better granary, reflected patient observation, experimentation, and practical creativity, shaping lives and societies in ways that often went unnoticed. Extraordinary people also influenced culture through subtle leadership. Rulers, philosophers, and priests established norms, moral frameworks, and civic structures that guided behavior. In ancient Athens, philosophers like Socrates and Plato nurtured dialogue and reflection, emphasizing observation of human behavior, reason, and ethics. In Egypt, viziers and advisors managed complex bureaucracies, balancing governance, economy, and ritual. These quiet forms of influence shaped civilizations as much as public achievements or monumental structures. Curiosity and experimentation were central to human innovation. Ancient inventors tested materials, observed cause and effect, and refined techniques. In Mesopotamia, potters experimented with glazes and kiln temperatures, producing durable ceramics. In India, metallurgists developed wood steel, producing blades prized for both strength and beauty. In China, engineers refined water clocks, astronomical instruments, and hydraulic systems. Each innovation represents patient observation, iteration, and creative thought, quietly transforming human experience. Human brilliance sometimes manifested in eccentricity. Caligula's bizarre projects, Leonardo da Vinci's detailed anatomical studies, or the obsessive cataloguing of ancient Chinese scholars illustrate diverse paths of curiosity. Even unconventional pursuits contributed to understanding, artistry, or social memory. Observing patterns, experimenting with materials, and documenting results were universal practices among these extraordinary minds, blending curiosity with meticulous attention. Reflecting on these extraordinary individuals, one sees that their impact often emerged from careful observation, patience, and subtle ingenuity rather than overt spectacle. Leaders shaped policy and culture, inventors and engineers transformed practical life, scholars preserved and expanded knowledge, artists and musicians enriched experience, explorers mapped the unknown. Across civilizations, quiet brilliance drove human progress in ways that continue to ripple through time. Imagining the lives of these innovators and extraordinary figures, one perceives patience, focus, and creativity guiding every action. Whether measuring celestial cycles, sculpting a statue, cultivating a crop, or designing a mechanism, their work required both reflection and experimentation. The quiet persistence of human curiosity and ingenuity, manifest across continents and eras, forms a connective thread linking observation, creativity, and the enduring capacity to shape the world. Ancient artifacts carry the quiet weight of history. Each object, whether functional, ceremonial, or decorative, speaks to human ingenuity, belief, and curiosity. Some are well understood, while others remain enigmatic, leaving modern observers to wonder at their purpose, origin, or symbolism. Examining these artifacts allows a subtle dialogue across centuries, linking us with lives, thoughts, and mysteries long past. The Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, is one of the most famous ancient enigmas. This bronze device with interlocking gears could predict lunar and solar cycles, eclipses, and even the positions of certain planets. Its precision surpasses much of what was thought possible in its time, reflecting careful observation, mathematical skill, and mechanical ingenuity. Scholars still study its complexity, marveling at the quiet brilliance required to create such an instrument. Strange tools and jewelry suggest purposes that elude full understanding. In Mesoamerica, objects made of jade, obsidian, or gold were meticulously carved into figurines, ceremonial knives, and amulets. While some were clearly decorative or ritualistic, others display designs whose meaning or function remains debated. Similar enigmas appear in prehistoric Europe, where finely crafted stone and bone tools hint at activities, beliefs, or techniques lost to time. The precision and care invested in these items reveal that even seemingly small objects could carry profound significance. Seals and amulets offer both practical and symbolic insight. In Mesopotamia, cylinder seals imprinted intricate images on clay tablets, serving administrative, legal, and ceremonial purposes. Each impression was a unique identifier reflecting ownership, authority, or ritual. Amulets from Egypt or the Indus Valley often depicted gods, animals, or symbols intended to protect, bless, or empower the wearer. These artifacts reveal careful observation of design, symbolism, and human belief, quietly blending utility with spirituality. Weapons with unknown purposes continue to puzzle archaeologists. Certain ceremonial swords, maces, or projectile devices appear in tombs or sacred sites without clear evidence of use in combat. In some cases, the form suggests symbolic or ritual function rather than practicality. The meticulous craftsmanship of these objects reflects both skill and intent, hinting at lost knowledge or cultural priorities that may never be fully understood. Unexplained objects sometimes indicate advanced observation or experimentation. The Roman dodecahedrons, small bronze objects with 12 faces and holes, have defied conclusive explanation. Some suggest they were used for measuring distances, surveying, or astronomical observation. Others propose ritual or symbolic purposes. Regardless of their use, these items demonstrate precision, creativity, and thoughtfulness, silently connecting us to the problem-solving mindset of their creators. Artifacts also reveal trade, cultural exchange, and connectivity. Materials such as obsidian, lapis lazuli, or exotic metals traveled across continents, suggesting extensive networks and careful planning. Objects were often adapted, repurposed, or decorated according to local traditions, reflecting both observation of materials and aesthetic sensibility. Through these artifacts, one sees a quiet interplay of innovation, mobility, and cultural adaptation. Ceramic and pottery work illustrates the blend of artistry, observation, and utility. Ancient pots, bowls, and storage vessels were crafted for durability, function, and decoration. Techniques like wheel throwing, firing, and glazing required careful attention to material, temperature, and environmental conditions. Designs often depicted myth, daily life, or symbolic patterns, creating a record of cultural expression and subtle technological skill. Even fragments of pottery reveal patterns of trade, cuisine, and social life. Textiles and clothing artifacts also speak volumes. In Peru, Inca weavers produced garments with intricate patterns and color combinations reflecting status, ritual, and cosmology. In Egypt, linen garments were carefully prepared for daily wear and burial rites, reflecting both practical observation and ceremonial importance. Patterns, dyes, and construction techniques encode knowledge about plants, animals, and resources, revealing quiet sophistication in human craftsmanship. Tools for writing and record-keeping, styluses, ink, tablets, and papyrus documented thought, trade, and culture. Cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia, hieroglyphic papyri from Egypt, and oracle bones from China record everything from commerce to celestial observation. Their creation required observation of symbols, careful execution, and an understanding of communication. These artifacts illustrate that even ordinary tools were invested with intellectual and cultural significance, bridging past and present. Ritual objects often contained layers of meaning. In Egypt, canopic jars held internal organs for the afterlife, while in Mesoamerica, ceremonial vessels held offerings for gods. Objects may include inscriptions, carvings, or embedded symbols, indicating both spiritual and practical intention. Observing these items offers insight into belief systems, priorities, and imagination, connecting us with human thought in a deeply intimate way. Reflecting on these mysterious objects, one senses patient observation, creativity, and the desire to leave a lasting mark. Each artifact required attention to material, environment, and intended use. Whether for ritual, adornment, utility, or documentation, objects reveal the quiet ingenuity of their makers. Even without full understanding, these artifacts preserve traces of human thought, skill, and cultural expression, allowing modern observers to connect with distant lives. Imagining a collection of these artifacts, one sees bronze gears, carved stones, golden amulets, and intricately painted pottery arranged with care. Each object carries a whisper of purpose, a story partially hidden yet tangible. Once shaped, polished, or inscribed these items with observation, patience, and imagination. The quiet ingenuity embedded in these objects reminds us that human curiosity and creativity have always sought to understand, manipulate, and honor the world, leaving behind tangible legacies for reflection and wonder. Ancient societies carefully observed human behavior and social patterns, shaping rules and governance systems to maintain order, fairness, and continuity. Laws were not merely prescriptive, they reflected ethics, religious beliefs, and pragmatic concerns, subtly influencing daily life while encoding collective wisdom across generations. Bureaucracy, administration, and dispute resolution reveal how early civilizations approached the complexities of human interaction with thoughtful observation and structured systems. Hammurabi's code, inscribed on a stone stele in Babylon around 1750 BCE, is one of the earliest known codifications of law. Comprising nearly 300 provisions, it addressed everything from commerce and property to family relations and criminal behavior. The code reflected a careful observation of social dynamics, establishing consequences for specific actions while providing a framework for dispute resolution. Its emphasis on proportionality, though strict by modern standards, offered predictability and stability, quietly shaping daily interactions. Other civilizations developed distinct legal structures suited to their cultural and environmental contexts. In ancient Egypt, law was intertwined with ma'at, the concept of truth, balance, and cosmic order. Officials and scribes observed disputes, recorded decisions, and ensured that rulings reflected both justice and social harmony. Temples and courts served as centers of governance, blending legal, religious, and administrative functions. This integration of law with cultural and spiritual values demonstrates subtle observation of both human behavior and societal needs. Bureaucracy in ancient civilizations was a tool for managing resources, labor, and population. Mesopotamia developed elaborate systems of taxation, record-keeping, and civil administration, ensuring that trade, agriculture, and civic infrastructure operated smoothly. Scribes maintained clay tablets documenting transactions, property, and contracts, reflecting patient observation, accuracy, and attention to detail. In Egypt, officials managed grain storage, construction projects, and labor conscription, linking governance with both economy and ritual practice. Methods of conflict resolution ranged from negotiation to formal adjudication. Ancient courts relied on observation, testimony, and precedent to settle disputes. In Athens, citizens participated in juries, weighing evidence and deliberating with civic responsibility. In China, local magistrates observed circumstances carefully, issuing judgments that balanced law, morality, and social stability. Across societies, rules were flexible enough to accommodate context, yet structured enough to maintain order, demonstrating careful attention to human behavior and fairness. Legal systems influenced daily life in subtle ways. Property ownership, inheritance, contracts, and trade were all guided by codified rules, affecting decisions from household management to civic engagement. Marriage, divorce, and child-rearing were regulated, reflecting both practical concerns and cultural priorities. By embedding observation of social dynamics into formal structures, ancient governments quietly guided behavior and ensured continuity across generations. Governments also shaped society through taxation, public works, and regulation. Mesopotamian rulers levied taxes to fund irrigation, defense, and temple construction, balancing civic need with resource allocation. In Egypt, corvée labor contributed to monumental architecture, with careful record-keeping ensuring that communities fulfilled obligations. Observation of seasonal cycles, population distribution, and economic patterns informed policy, demonstrating a subtle but pervasive influence of governance on daily life. laws were sometimes intertwined with religion and morality. Punishments and privileges were framed within cosmology and divine favor. In ancient Israel, laws described in the Torah linked justice with covenantal principles. In Mesopotamia, offerings, oaths, and ritual acts accompanied legal decisions. Observation of human behavior combined with spiritual interpretation guided rulers in creating systems that were both practical and culturally resonant, shaping behavior in ways that extended beyond immediate enforcement. Documentation and record-keeping preserved the continuity of governance. Clay tablets, papyri, inscriptions, and seals allowed rulers to maintain consistent administration across vast territories. In China, imperial edicts were circulated and archived, ensuring that local officials followed established procedures. Observing and documenting outcomes allowed governments to refine policies, assess effectiveness, and maintain social cohesion, demonstrating a patient, systematic approach to leadership. Leadership itself often depended on careful observation. Monarchs, councils, and magistrates needed to understand human tendencies, social hierarchies, and environmental constraints. Alexander the Great coordinated administration across diverse regions, balancing local traditions with centralized authority. Roman governors managed cities with attention to law, infrastructure, and citizen needs. Observation, diplomacy, and subtle management allowed leaders to govern effectively without constant coercion, reflecting both strategic thinking and human insight. Trade and diplomacy were closely tied to governance. Treaties, trade agreements, and negotiations required observation of foreign cultures, economic conditions, and political ambitions. In Mesopotamia, correspondence between city-states recorded agreements and disputes, forming a subtle network of communication and law. Egyptian envoys documented gifts, alliances, and conflicts, ensuring that rulers could make informed decisions. Observation, record-keeping, and protocol formed the backbone of both domestic and international governance. Military organization was another aspect of law and administration. Conscription, provisioning, and regulation of conduct were enforced through codified rules. Soldiers' lives were structured by observation of hierarchy, discipline, and reward. In Rome, legal frameworks guided conduct during war, treatment of prisoners, and distribution of spoils. These systems balanced order with practical needs, reflecting thoughtful integration of governance and human behavior. Reflecting on ancient law and governance, one senses the quiet diligence behind societal cohesion. Laws, codes, and administrative systems were not arbitrary. They arose from careful observation of human behavior, ecological constraints, and cultural priorities. Governance blended pragmatism with morality, observation with ritual, and individual rights with collective stability. Even today, these early frameworks inform our understanding of justice, administration, and human organization. Imagining the implementation of these laws, one can picture scribes recording transactions, magistrates listening carefully to disputes, and rulers observing outcomes. Communities functioned through subtle coordination, guided by rules and expectations established over centuries. Tax collectors, judges, soldiers, and officials operated in harmony with codified systems, balancing human behavior with societal goals. Through patient observation and structured intervention, ancient civilizations quietly created stability, fairness, and continuity, leaving legacies that endure in both law and cultural memory. Babylonian star charts, Egyptian nautical maps, and Chinese geomantic charts allowed travelers to understand distance, direction, and terrain. Instruments such as the astrolabe, gnomon, and sounding line enabled calculation of position and depth. Observation of celestial bodies, currents, landmarks, and environmental patterns informed both short journeys and long expeditions. These tools represent the blending of empirical study, experimentation, and practical application. Observation of terrain, weather, and political landscapes ensured safe passage, allowing goods and information to flow in a carefully orchestrated network that quietly shaped the ancient world. Cultural encounters during exploration enriched societies. Travelers brought foreign knowledge, artistic techniques, culinary practices, and religious ideas. Egyptian expeditions reached Punt, exchanging exotic goods like incense, gold, and animals. Greek merchants and explorers carried pottery, mathematics, and philosophy across the Mediterranean. Each interaction required attention, respect, and adaptation, blending observation with social skill to integrate new information into local contexts. Exploration also inspired scientific curiosity. Observing flora, fauna, geography, and celestial patterns during travel expanded knowledge of natural systems. Ancient scholars documented unknown plants, medicinal herbs, and animal species, often incorporating these observations into medicine, agriculture, and ritual. Travelers' careful attention to environment and resources transformed practical exploration into a form of systematic observation and documentation, quietly enriching human understanding of the world. Logistics were a constant consideration in ancient travel. Organizing supplies, calculating distances, and timing journeys required meticulous planning. Nomadic societies, river traders, and seafaring communities observed seasonal patterns to optimize movement and minimize risk. Storage of food and water, knowledge of safe harbors, and awareness of animal behavior or terrain hazards ensured survival. These quiet, practical observations were as essential as maps or instruments, forming the foundation of successful exploration. Exploration was often intertwined with diplomacy. Envoys, traders, and emissaries traveled to negotiate alliances, tribute, and treaties. Observation of local customs, governance, and social hierarchies informed diplomatic strategy, ensuring effective communication and negotiation. These journeys required both patience and cultural sensitivity, blending practical observation with social intelligence. Observing natural and constructed markers, travelers followed paths imbued with cultural and spiritual significance. These journeys connected individuals with community, ancestors, and the cosmos, blending observation with reflection and ritual. Reflecting on ancient travel and exploration, one senses patience, curiosity, and subtle ingenuity. Travelers observed patterns in the environment, learned from local knowledge, and adapted tools and techniques to ensure survival and success. Observation, skill, and curiosity created the foundation for understanding the broader world, allowing civilizations to flourish in harmony with both nature and one another. Throughout human history, civilizations have risen, flourished, and vanished, leaving behind fragments of knowledge, architecture, and culture. Some achievements remain fully understood, while others retain a quiet sense of mystery, offering glimpses into worlds we can only partially reconstruct. Lost cities, vanished technologies, and undeciphered scripts provide a subtle reminder of how much human ingenuity has been recorded, forgotten, and rediscovered over time. Disappearing civilizations often leave remarkable traces. The Indus Valley Civilization, for example, established cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa with carefully planned streets, advanced drainage, and uniform building techniques. Yet, the script they used remains largely undeciphered, and the reasons for the civilization's decline continue to provoke curiosity. Observing these ruins today, one perceives both meticulous planning and the enigmatic disappearance of a society whose sophistication hints at knowledge lost to history. Lost cities can be found across continents, each with unique stories. In Central America, cities of the Maya such as Tikal and Palenque feature pyramids, observatories, and ceremonial complexes reflecting deep knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and governance. Many sites were abandoned due to environmental change, resource depletion, or conflict, leaving structures that quietly testify to the ingenuity and ritual life of their inhabitants. Exploring these ruins today, one is reminded that even thriving civilizations can vanish, leaving only traces of their achievements. Knowledge sometimes disappeared with the loss of libraries or texts. The Library of Alexandria, one of the most famous repositories of ancient learning, housed scrolls on medicine, mathematics, philosophy, and literature. Its destruction removed a vast amount of information from human reach, leaving scholars to reconstruct insights from scattered references. The careful observation, experimentation, and thought recorded in those texts shaped intellectual history, yet much was irretrievably lost, a silent echo of human curiosity. Puzzles in ancient scripts continue to challenge modern understanding. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island, Linear A from Crete, and the Indus script resist full translation. Each represents a system of communication crafted with observation, convention, and cultural nuance. While the meaning remains elusive, the physical evidence shows meticulous recording, systematic structure, and attention to context. These scripts remind us that knowledge is fragile and often survives only in fragments. Unexplained monuments and constructions evoke both awe and reflection. Stonehenge in England aligns with solstices, yet its builders' precise methods and purpose remain partly mysterious. The megalithic temples of Malta feature intricate corbelling and orientation whose reasoning is still debated. In Peru, Machu Picchu is carefully positioned among mountains and rivers, blending engineering, astronomy, and aesthetic sensibility. Observing these sites, one senses both deliberate human design and a quiet connection with the cosmos, suggesting knowledge that may be lost or never fully explained. Artifacts sometimes hint at forgotten practices. Ancient surgical tools from Egypt and Greece demonstrate medical knowledge that rivaled modern techniques, while the use of complex metallurgy in weapons and jewelry shows technical skill lost over time. In the Americas, the Quipu system recorded numeric and possibly narrative information, yet its full interpretation remains uncertain. Each object reflects careful observation, experimentation, and technical sophistication, offering glimpses into practices and wisdom that may never be completely understood. Ritual and spiritual knowledge was also vulnerable to loss. Ceremonies, chants, and oral traditions depended on careful transmission. When communities declined or oral lineages were broken, complex practices faded. In Africa, the knowledge of certain medicinal plants, once widely shared, survived only in isolated traditions. In Polynesia, navigational techniques passed through generations of oral teaching were at risk of disappearing with the colonization of islands. Observation, memory, and discipline were central to these practices, highlighting the delicate nature of transmitted knowledge. Some lost knowledge intersects with astronomy and measurement. Ancient calendars, star charts, and observation techniques illustrate precise understanding of celestial cycles. The Maya recorded solar and lunar events with remarkable accuracy, while the Egyptians aligned pyramids to capture sunlight at specific times of year. In some cases, the reasoning behind certain alignments remains uncertain, suggesting a blend of empirical observation and cultural or spiritual intention that modern scholars can admire but not fully decode. Engineering feats also testify to lost techniques. Roman concrete, able to endure millennia underwater, demonstrates a material knowledge only recently replicated. The aqueducts, bridges, and roads built across diverse terrain relied on observation of materials, gravity, and topography, yet many construction methods remain partially mysterious. Observing these structures, one appreciates both practical skill and sophisticated planning, quietly preserved in stone and mortar. Trade and cultural exchange carried knowledge that sometimes vanished with disruption. Exotic materials, specialized techniques, and artistic motifs traveled across continents, only to disappear when societies collapsed or trade networks ended. Silk weaving, metallurgy, and pottery styles show the movement of expertise that could be lost with a single societal shift. Observation, adaptation, and experimentation were central to these practices, underscoring the fragility of accumulated human wisdom. Reflecting on ancient mysteries and lost knowledge, one senses both wonder and humility. Human societies created complex systems, technologies, and cultural achievements, yet even meticulous observation and careful record-keeping could not prevent some knowledge from fading. Lost cities, undeciphered scripts, vanished rituals, and enigmatic monuments remind us of the impermanence of human endeavor and the persistent curiosity that drives exploration, study, and reconstruction. Imagining these mysteries, one envisions archaeologists carefully brushing away centuries of dust, uncovering ruins of ancient streets, tools, and inscriptions. Observers measure alignments, record patterns, and speculate on lost wisdom, connecting with people who lived millennia ago. The quiet persistence of curiosity, observation, and reflection allows fragments of the past to be appreciated and pondered. Even when complete understanding is impossible, these remnants offer insight into the creativity, skill, and cultural depth of civilizations that existed long before us. Ancient civilizations were keen observers of the world around them, quietly gathering knowledge through careful study of nature, materials, and human behavior. Science was not separate from daily life. It was woven into farming, architecture, medicine, astronomy, and craft. Through patient observation, experimentation, and reflection, societies built foundational knowledge that continues to influence our understanding today. Mathematics and geometry were central to understanding the world. The Egyptians used geometry to survey land after annual Nile floods, calculating areas and angles to reconstruct fields accurately. The Greeks formalized geometric principles, with Euclid's work providing methods still studied today. In India, scholars developed sophisticated algebraic concepts and explored numeric systems, including zero and negative numbers. Observation of shapes, patterns, and relationships allowed these civilizations to measure, plan, and create with precision, blending abstract thought with practical application. Early engineering was grounded in careful observation of materials and forces. Roman architects built arches, aqueducts, and roads that have endured for millennia, studying weight distribution, materials, and topography. In Mesopotamia, engineers designed levees, canals, and irrigation systems, applying knowledge of water flow and soil behavior. In China, the development of iron and bronze tools required attention to temperature, chemical reaction, and structural integrity. These practical innovations arose from patient experimentation and careful documentation of results. Medicine combined observation, empirical practice, and ritual knowledge. Ancient Egyptian physicians performed surgeries, set fractures, and applied herbal remedies, recording techniques on papyri for future practitioners. In India, the Ayurvedic tradition classified plants, minerals, and bodily functions, emphasizing balance and observation of symptoms. Greek physicians like Hippocrates encouraged careful study of patients, noting diet, lifestyle, and environmental factors. Observing patterns in illness and recovery laid the foundation for systematic medical practice, blending skill with reflection and careful experimentation. Astronomy inspired both practical and philosophical inquiry. Ancient civilizations tracked the movement of stars, planets, and the sun to guide agriculture, ritual, and navigation. The Babylonians developed predictive models for lunar and solar eclipses, while the Maya recorded celestial cycles with remarkable accuracy. Observing the sky allowed societies to create calendars, forecast seasons, and align architecture with celestial events. Science and spirituality often intertwined, reflecting careful observation and a desire to harmonize human life with cosmic rhythms. Classification of animals, plants, and minerals was another form of scientific inquiry. Scholars in Greece, India, China, and Egypt observed species characteristics, habitats, and behaviors, creating early taxonomies. Medicinal plants, agricultural crops, and animal domestication were all documented systematically, allowing knowledge to be transmitted across generations. Observation, experimentation, and categorization were central to understanding the natural world and applying knowledge for practical benefit. Material science emerged from observation of physical properties. Metallurgy, ceramics, and construction all required detailed understanding of materials. In ancient Egypt, craftsmen observed how different stones responded to chiseling, or how clay and temper affected pottery durability. In Mesopotamia, blacksmiths experimented with alloys to improve weapons and tools. In China, early alchemists explored combinations of metals and chemicals, blending empirical observation with philosophical reasoning. The careful study of matter allowed civilizations to shape their environment and daily life in enduring ways. Scientific observation was also embedded in myths, rituals, and cultural practices. Stories of gods and heroes often contained encoded knowledge about the natural world. For example, agricultural cycles were reflected in mythic narratives, encoding the timing of planting and harvest. Celestial movements were described symbolically, preserving observations of the sun, moon, and planets. Even when expressed poetically, these stories reveal careful attention to patterns, cycles, and phenomena, blending culture with empirical insight. Experimentation was not always formal, yet it produced measurable results. Farmers observed crop rotation, irrigation methods, and soil fertility, adjusting techniques for maximum yield. Artisans refined kiln temperatures, metal hardness, and weaving patterns, applying lessons from repeated practice. builders studied the stability of arches, columns, and bridges, adapting designs based on results. Observation, trial, and refinement were constant companions to human activity, quietly advancing knowledge without formal scientific institutions. Observation of human behavior contributed to social science and governance. Leaders studied population patterns, labor organization, and resource distribution to maintain order and stability. Philosophers documented ethics, logic, and the nature of human interaction, offering insight into social patterns and decision-making. Careful attention to cause, effect, and human tendencies allowed early societies to structure law, trade, and communal life, blending scientific observation with cultural practice. Reflecting on ancient science, one sees a continuum of observation, curiosity, and experimentation. Knowledge was gained not through sudden revelation, but through patient engagement with the environment, materials, and human activity. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, and classification emerged from repeated attention to patterns and outcomes, combined with creativity and reasoning. The cumulative effect of these insights quietly shaped civilizations, providing stability, innovation, and understanding. Imagining the world through the eyes of ancient scientists, one envisions scribes calculating areas, astronomers charting stars, physicians examining patients, and craftsmen refining tools. Each observer measured, recorded, and reflected, linking experience with knowledge. Scientific insight was a tapestry of careful attention, trial and error, and imagination woven into the fabric of daily life, culture, and ritual. The quiet patience and curiosity of these observers created legacies that endure in our mathematics, medicine, architecture, and understanding of the natural world. Looking back across the millennia, one notices patterns that unite civilizations and reveal enduring aspects of human life. Despite vast differences in geography, culture, and technology, many societies developed similar solutions, observed comparable natural phenomena, and celebrated common human experiences. Daily routines, work, ritual, art, and curiosity create a subtle continuity that quietly connects us with our ancestors. Shared inventions and ideas emerge in surprising ways. Pottery appears in multiple regions, from the Indus Valley to the Nile to Mesoamerica, reflecting an intuitive understanding of materials, firing techniques, and storage needs. Agriculture arose independently in several areas as humans observed seeds sprouting, soil responding to water, and animals behaving predictably. Observation, experimentation, and adaptation were universal methods, quietly shaping food security, settlement patterns, and social organization across the world. Patterns in daily life reveal a remarkable continuity with the present. Ancient people prepared meals, cared for families, constructed homes, and engaged in trade much as we do today. Markets, public spaces, and neighborhoods organized communities, while social rituals marked transitions, celebrated achievements, or honored the dead. Work and leisure, labor and reflection created the rhythms of life, demonstrating that while technology and belief systems changed, the core experiences of living remained surprisingly constant. Innovation and creativity flourished in all civilizations, from architectural feats to musical instruments, from mathematical insight to artistic expression. Humans observed, experimented, and refined their creations. Civilizations such as Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, China, and Greece developed unique systems, yet each relied on patience, careful observation, and a blend of practicality and imagination. Creativity shaped identity and memory, leaving subtle traces that continue to inspire curiosity and admiration. Human ingenuity often responded to environmental challenges. Irrigation, terracing, and water management allowed agriculture in dry or mountainous regions. Shelter and urban planning adapted to climate, topography, and population density. Medicine and diet reflected observation of health, disease, and the natural world. Each solution required a combination of trial, attention, and reflection, illustrating the quiet brilliance of human problem-solving across contexts and continents. Ritual and culture reflect shared human tendencies toward meaning-making. Religious ceremonies, festivals, and rites of passage were present in nearly every society, offering structure, guidance, and connection. Art, music, and storytelling preserved history, transmitted knowledge, and celebrated community. Observation of natural cycles, social behavior, and cosmology informed these practices, creating a tapestry of human life that balanced practicality with spirituality and function with beauty. Trade and communication shaped cultural evolution. Exchange of goods, techniques, and ideas connected distant regions, creating networks that allowed observation and adaptation of innovations. Exotic materials, artistic motifs, and technological concepts traveled across continents, demonstrating curiosity, ingenuity, and subtle coordination. Through trade, knowledge moved as fluidly as goods, enriching civilizations while quietly linking their fates and achievements. Reflections on governance reveal common patterns in human society. Leaders observed population behavior, resource distribution, and social dynamics to maintain cohesion. Laws, regulations, and administrative systems guided communities, balancing authority with fairness. Diplomacy, negotiation, and conflict resolution emerged from careful observation of human tendencies. Across regions and eras, governance relied on insight into human nature, reflecting the universality of social intelligence. Science and technology demonstrate both observation and continuity. Ancient astronomy, mathematics, engineering, and medicine show that humans everywhere applied empirical thinking to understand and manipulate their surroundings. Innovations were often independently developed in different regions, illustrating that careful observation, experimentation, and reasoning are fundamental human behaviors. Knowledge accumulated slowly, layer by layer, preserved in artifacts, writings, and structures. Art and storytelling reveal patterns of expression and memory. Frescoes, carvings, mosaics, and musical instruments documented daily life, spiritual beliefs, and cosmic understanding. Oral traditions preserved history, moral lessons, and cultural identity. Even when civilizations vanished, art and stories endured, offering insight into human creativity and observation. These expressions remind us that the desire to understand, communicate, and commemorate is a timeless human trait. Ancient rituals, beliefs, and customs often reflect shared responses to uncertainty. Practices surrounding birth, death, and seasonal change provided comfort and structure. Observing patterns in nature, social behavior, and celestial cycles allowed humans to predict outcomes, reduce anxiety, and strengthen community bonds. These practices, though diverse in form, reveal universal human strategies for navigating the complexities of existence, blending observation, imagination, and cultural codification. In reflecting on ancient humanity, one appreciates both the diversity and similarity of human experience. Societies differed in language, belief, technology, and geography, yet common threads emerge: curiosity, observation, creativity, adaptation, and the desire to understand and shape the world. Daily routines, artistic expression, ritual, innovation, and governance all reveal that human concerns, ingenuity, and resilience have remained remarkably consistent across time and space. Imagining a day in the life of an ancient farmer, scholar, artisan, or explorer, one perceives continuity with modern experience. People observed weather, tracked celestial events, prepared food, cared for families, recorded transactions, and celebrated milestones. They solved practical problems, created art, debated ideas, and explored the unknown. These acts of observation, reflection, and creativity form a quiet lineage, linking us with those who walked centuries and millennia before, reminding us of the enduring spirit of humanity. In this contemplation, there is also comfort. Ancient humans experienced curiosity, joy, struggle, and discovery just as we do. Their methods of observation, experimentation, and reflection underpin modern knowledge, while their daily lives echo familiar rhythms. By observing their achievements, innovations, and patterns, we connect with a shared human experience that transcends time, gently guiding us to recognize both continuity and growth in our own lives. Finally, considering ancient humanity as a whole offers a gentle perspective on our place in history. Civilizations rise and fall, knowledge is gained and lost, yet the quiet persistence of observation, creativity, and cultural transmission endures. Each fragment of ancient life, from a carved artifact to a mathematical insight, from a ritual to a building, carries evidence of human ingenuity, care, and attention. Reflecting on these achievements allows the mind to drift through history, appreciating the shared curiosity, resilience, and creativity that defines us as a species. If you enjoyed this journey through time, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Until then, good night.